Hey guys, welcome back. Eric Smith here, 5 Reasons Sports contributor, also co-host on Scouting the Fins. And if you go back to my weekly offensive line review videos, you'll find some mentions of running backs missing reads and making things look worse than what they are in some cases. This is not going to be a video to try and defend the offensive line, which needed to improve also. It's more trying to show that the issues around the run game in 2024 requires more of a comprehensive view than fix the guards. We did a couple of videos on Jalen Wright, and today we're going to look at some of the runs where De'Von Achane has room to improve. Achane had 203 carries in 2024, and we're going to look at somewhere around 10 or 11 plays in this video, and that's 6% of his runs. And it's not, those aren't all of the ones that fall into this category, but I'm not looking to drag this video out too long looking at the same things over and over again. And some of those 203 carries are swing passes or screen passes that were behind the line of scrimmage, so they still count as run plays. And then there's other ones like crack toss that aren't as dependent on the running back's ability to read their blocks. So we're probably talking closer to 20% of Achane's runs, where taking what the reads give him could result in a better result for the offense overall. And this is a tough conversation because Achane has elite speed, right? And so sometimes even making bad reads can end up with good results, right? And also some of the blocking issues they had in 2024, especially once Austin Jackson left the lineup, creates a necessity for running backs to do more than what the system wants to have them do. HN shows flashes of reading well and profiting from those reads, and I think if you watch this video and you understand some of the reads that we're going to talk about, and then you go back and look at some of HN's highlight videos, you're going to see how many of those highlights are when he's making the reads that take advantage of the finer details of those blocks. All right, so first one here is going to be against the Bills. As you can see, it's kind of an outside zone play. Gets kind of caught up late there. And what I want you to look at here, right, as we're going through, obviously Eichenberg's block is giving an outside read. Jackson's leverage is giving an inside read. And no, Eichenberg did not do a good job on this play. But you can still see that, based on the leverage, right, we really need the running back just to kind of stick it up in there where that, the lane is showing, right? And maybe he doesn't make it through, but if he does, look at the space that's created out there. Instead, Achane's late to get there, lets the defense rally and make the play on that one. Next one here, going to be against the Rams. Right now we're getting more of a crack toss look. And on this one, you can see that Achane comes to a complete stop. Right? And that's rarely going to be a good thing in this offense, but you can see that, if he sees that just a little bit earlier, right? Got to go through it again here. Right? Achane's getting the toss now. As he's finding the blocks out here, Beckham didn't do a good job of sealing that or, cracking down, sealing him to the inside. So right now, should be looking at this lane right there. And you can see that Achane still tries to press that outside further, right? And if you just make a slight adjustment here and get vertical with it, there's still, potential for a solid gain here. Instead, Achane presses it further and further outside. Even then could have continued down this lane, got 4 or 5 yards, instead puts on the brakes and lets the defense close in. Now we're looking against the Packers. All right. Outside zone look again. Now on this one, you can see that Lamb is working his way around. You got Ingold kicking out there. Right there is where your lane is developing. And instead, Achane looks to bounce it, realizes late that he made the wrong read, and tries to get back inside, letting the defense get there. But again, as we're going through there, right, if he stays on path there, reads those blocks properly, and gets through, just this little bit of trash here. We've got all this open space that he can work with once he gets out there. Instead, he bounces it, ends up getting tackled for, a loss or a no gain there. Against the 49ers, so on this one, right, reading the blocks again, looks like they're trying to do outside zone, right, with Ingold inserting through to get Warner. You can see that the leverage is all there, right? Eichenberg has okay leverage, keeping his guy to the inside. Lamb's not great, but he, is has enough leverage there. If we follow Ingold here, look at the lane that's developing there, right? Maybe that defender gets over there and makes the play eventually, but you're talking closer to the goal line. Instead, Achane tries to bounce that where Warner has that leverage. Warner's one of the best linebackers in the league, so he closes that down. So he tries to bounce it further, right? And just runs into a bunch of traffic out there, right? So just another opportunity here where you can see the lane opening up right there now. Just stick with your fullback, right? And score an easy touchdown here instead of trying to bounce it to the outside. Against the Titans, right? Again, on this one, he's making the right reads, right? Jackson's not giving him a great read there. But if I had to make a decision here, I would say that Jackson has inside leverage, right? So does, I think that's Julian Hill here, right? Not really concerned about that one, but Brewer's not going to get to the outside of that guy. So this should be a cutback all day right through that lane. But you can see we go a few more steps and we're late trying to get there. By then, Brewers, has lost that leverage. Whereas, had this block been, or had the cut been made a step earlier, we're hitting that again into open space one-on-one with a safety. Instead, a late read ends up with going too far outside and letting the defense rally to the ball. Another one against the Titans here. Again. Now we're getting outside zone, right? And again, trying to bounce something that's not there. Right? So as he's taking that handoff, look at all this leverage, right? This defender has outside leverage, outside leverage, outside leverage, right? Not clear, right? But this read should either be to bang it up inside or to cut back. The one place that you shouldn't go on this is outside. And what does Achane do? Starts to read it to the inside. And, had he tucked it in there, was it going to be a huge gain? No, probably not, right? But instead, he tries to bounce it and ends up with a loss there. So opportunity there, right, where we're staying ahead of the chains rather than taking a loss on the play. Now against the Colts here. And now this one, little tougher, but, we're reading this block on the run, just looking at Ingles' block. He, obviously hits the right lane here. He's tucked in there nice to Ingold. That defender's going to the outside, right? Plant your foot and get to the inside. You have Brewer here. You have Eichenberg working up, right? Instead, Achane goes to the right where we've got an unblocked defender. We're going into the defender that Ingold's blocking and end up getting tackled there. Right? Again, once we see that block here, cut that back and get several more yards there. Colts again. And again, right, he makes the right read early And I get that it wasn't there, right? And yes, it's Eichenberg, but right there is where you need to go, right? And it's not going to be a massive gain, most likely, because of Eichenberg's block, right? But we're looking at leverage again. This defender has outside leverage, right? So there, you don't have the opportunity. If this was more, face to face, I could see it because then as Achane gets the outside here, you can get vertical with it. Um, but just in my opinion, you either had to, with the leverage of defenders here, you either need to bang it up in there and just take what you can, right? Or cut that backside here. The one thing that you can't do on this play, based on the leverage of those defenders, is to bounce it outside, and that's what Achane ends up doing. Against the Bills, similar idea here. And this, sorry about the mistakes on navigating through these videos. This particular video, I guess it got corrupted when it downloaded, so I don't have the end of the play. He does end up getting tackled by Jones there. But again, if you watch the way that this is going, right, Jones does not have great leverage there, but you can see that the reads should be taking him out here further. Brewer's doing a nice job out here of peeling off, and that lane should be opening up right there where we're getting to the second level and getting one-on-one with Damar Hamlin. And again, I understand, kind of why he's cutting back here, but this is where having that elite speed can get him into trouble, right? That he feels like he can cut back and take advantage of that space, but his size ends up with him getting tackled with an arm tackle. Whereas, if he just trusted his eyes and stayed on path there, right, may have had a opportunity for a better run. And then last one here against the Bills again, right? And another opportunity here where as he's taking the handoff, right, everybody has outside leverage, right? Outside, outside, outside. If we cut this back, look at what's opening up this way. And this is tough, right? Not saying it's an easy thing to do, but at the same time, and this is also part of the reason I've talked about this in previous videos, I don't like this toss because it's late to get the eyes back on the defense. But you can see that the eyes are on the defense now, and everybody has outside leverage, right? No reason to take this outside, and that's exactly what Achane ends up doing and lets the defense run into it. All right, so some of those may have seemed like nitpicking, and they are to an extent. But when you look at the history of this offense, it's thrived when play action could be used as a weapon for shot plays. And when you don't make the right reads on first and second down and you're sitting in third and long, you completely lose that from your arsenal. And that's why running backs that are drafted low or not at all and don't have the best physical traits end up being the ones that excel in this branch of offensive schemes. They understand that the scheme is more important than their skills, and they trust those reads, which allows them to stay in favorable down and distance scenarios. When you consistently make the right reads in this offense, eventually either a run will pop off for a long game, or the defense will creep up and take a false step on a play action or an RPO that results in an easy, long touchdown pass. As always, I appreciate you guys watching these videos. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think, and we'll talk again soon.